Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and your eyes do not deceive you. These are Pleasure Seekers of SLAANESH. For context, ChaosRobie, a very popular modder, has released a new mod known as Pleasure Seekers of SLAANESH and TZEENTCH Great Winged Terrors. We're going to talk about them both, but right now I want to talk about the SLAANESHy ones because, well, you guys know me well enough. This is a Pleasure Seeker of SLAANESH, sometimes known as a Steed of SLAANESH, and, well, to most people in the forums and all that, boob snakes. They just don't have the boobs here because, well, you know, nudity things. Anyways, how it works is that these are monstrous mounts. They were commonly used with characters, sometimes with cavalry. This was back in a kit bash era. There was also this mount for a Warriors of Chaos character, which was really, really cool. It's one of my favorite mount options from back in the days on the tabletop. And it's a mount I really want for Warhammer 3, and it's great that we finally see it as a mod, as, yeah, I know it wasn't the great mount, but then again, let's be honest, on the tabletop, SLAANESH wasn't great. It's just, I liked playing a SLAANESH. But the mount looks absolutely awesome. You can get an Allurus, a Herald on it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. There's also a unit variant too. We'll start talking about that now. But yeah, and I mean, look at it. It looks really nice. It reminds me of the miniature, just obviously without the memories. But it's just really, really cool. I think it looks really great. So not only is it a mount option for your Alluruses and your Heralds, but it's also a unit option too. And this provides a slower moving form of cavalry, but they act more as a tank unit than anything else. So they're armored, they're armor piercing, they've got poison attacks, magical attacks too. They've also got devastating flanker, which does help out quite a bit, because while you can have them at the front, which is perfectly possible, you could easily move them around. So yeah, you can still charge. There's 24 in the unit, which I honestly think is quite good because you do get a lot of coverage. Just wait till you see them a little bit later in a battle because it's actually really great to see. And, well, generally, they just look super, super cool. They cause fear too because, well, you know, demons, so yeah, it makes sense. And generally, good stats all around. 40 armor is quite decent, especially when you compare it around to SLAANESHy stuff. I will be honest, I've been preferring it more with the characters than I have the unit. That's more because I really wanted a character riding on top of it. I've got one of my kit bash models just like that. So I'm having a lot of nostalgia with these things. And the Pleasure Seekers themselves, as a unit, they're pretty strong. I must admit, they can do a lot of damage. I'm having a devil of a time trying to actually pinpoint what animations these use. I know ChaosRobie did create a lot of custom stuff, so maybe it's custom animations? Unless there's something that I'm completely missing. Though, if you guys notice it, please let me know, because I honestly can't place it. I mean, they look absolutely fantastic, so there's no complaints whatsoever. I really like these units. Anyways, as you can see, in terms of recruitment, you can't get them in campaign until tier 4, and you'll have to build up the same building tree, which will get you Steeds of SLAANESH, so that's alright. It's right on the same one as the Heartseekers, which is honestly not too bad. That means that you get the Heartseekers, which are really good and fast, and then you get the Pleasure Seekers. So the idea would be you hold down the enemies down with the Pleasure Seekers and charge through the flank and the rear with the Heartseekers. I mean, I'll be honest, that's what I've been doing myself, and I've been using it a lot with my characters. I've been playing for a few hours, and I must admit that I've probably been using the Exalted Keepers of Secrets less, because I have the Heartseekers now. As a mount option for the Herald and the Allurus, it is available to you at the end of the tree, as you can see there, but only for rank 11, which, let's be honest, it's quite quick to kind of level, especially with the first one that you get for the quest. So it was not going to be too long, and it's right before the Seeker Chariot. This means that you can either have it with the Seeker Chariot to be quite fast, casting spells, especially now that chariots work again, or how I've been preferring it myself is, well, you know, on a Pleasure Seeker just doing damage, because that way I can keep her up close and personal. She's a bit better off like that, especially when you see the attack animations and all that. It's pretty cool, which we're going to test out right now, and I'll be honest with you, probably not the best unit to test it on, because the Plague Bearers are pretty weak, but I just really like picking on Plague Bearers. They're like the new one that I've been kind of picking on lately. And yeah, I mean, the idea is just to show off the unit and what it can do anyway. So we've got 4 units of Pleasure Seekers and obviously 2 characters, a Herald and Allurus, all mounted. I'm not going to use any spells whatsoever. It's just I want these units to kind of move around and do their thing. And it's just going to be going straight in. No flanking except for 1 unit later on. The idea is just to meet them head on and see how we finally have a little bit of armor with this mod. So as soon as they start smashing in, you can already see a decent amount of damage. The charge was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Obviously it does help that we were charging down and all that, but the idea was I wanted this map because it's a SLAANESHy map and it just fits the theme. you can already start seeing some big damage as it goes. And animation-wise, you know, they do a little bit of a spit, you know, take that as you will. But they're doing a lot of damage. They're throwing around a lot of plague bearers. You can see them flying about. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not. I hope it is, because it's kind of funny seeing plague bearers absolutely flying. Like, really, a lot of flying. But it's kind of what you expect from the Pleasure Seekers, that they're just going to start smashing in, doing a little bit of a spit damage, and, you know, whipping and throwing their mass against it, because... well, it's a bit of a snake, but it doesn't really have a snake mouth, you know? So it's not really a bitey type of monster. In terms of power comparison, yes, the Pleasure Seekers are a lot stronger than the Plague Bearers, but the idea was just to see how they do, because even then, the Plague Bearers can hold out quite a bit, and they are able to do quite a bit of damage. The most important thing is that they're able to take punishment, but as you can see through the timer and so on, they are taking damage, and they are being deleted rather quickly, which is fantastic. I've been using these very heavily. It's made a lot of going through, say for example, the Realm of Khorne a lot more bearable as a Slaanesh player, because, you know, now I've got something that can hold for at least a little bit. They will still take damage from big stuff, and they will take heavy damage from, say for example, you know, anything that has anti-large and all that. But, yeah, no, I think they work very well. For those wondering if this is lore-friendly, yes, this is a lore-friendly unit. Even the mount option, because these were part of, I think it was 6th edition? Was it 6th edition? God, I'm feeling old. But it's around that area of time and so on. So yeah, it's completely lore-friendly. It's something that I've been advocating for a lot. I know I've said this before, but I really want Pleasure Seekers, and I think... even if we don't get it officially, at least we have got a cool mod for it, and it adds in a rather, let's be honest, needed unit. They're pretty good at fighting, well, pretty much anything humanoid, so that's pretty good. They will struggle against some monsters and anti-large stuff, but generally, yeah, they're fine. Honestly, I've seen them work quite well. The other unit in this mod is the Tzeentch Great Wing Terror. So, yeah, this is from Man of War, so technically, we have naval combat, because this was actually a naval combat unit. It's a flying ship, which was part of the Tzeentchian roster. I'm not sure if many people actually knew that. But anyways, it's really, really cool, and it looks pretty much like the miniature. The miniature was tiny, and God, I miss Man of War so much. But this is a single entity unit, and it's also a man option for your heralds. You can't get it for your iridescent horrors. Trust me, they're a bit strong. But, I mean, just look at the styling. It's great, and it's bringing me Man of War vibes, and I just wish Games Workshop would just do a made-for-order for Man of War once. Sorry, I'm rambling. Anyway, so what we do have here is a flying monster, well, technically ship, you can't really call it a monster, and it can't land, it's fully stationary on the sky, and it makes a lot of sense considering for what it actually is and what the intention behind this creature is. So let's talk about the stats in general. It's armored, it's got barrier, you know, it's a flying unit, I've already said that. It can't land. It's got flaming and magical attacks, very, very high range, and a lot of missile strength. This will be shown later on in this video. The idea is it doesn't move very quickly. It's actually quite slow from what I've seen, but this is a flying kind of multi-purpose war machine, so it does do a few different things. It's got the siege attacker trait too, which is very useful considering the fact that, yeah, there's a lot of sieges in Warhammer 3, so yeah, that will make it easier for you to go in. Mind you, you do have a lot of things with siege attacker, but this one's probably going to be the most useful. In terms of recruitment, you can find it in a tier 4 building. You can see it's right below the step to get the soul grinders, so you're already going to kind of be working through that anyway, and it's nice to have something in that area. That way you actually have a bit more incentive. And normally, from what I've experienced whilst playing with the mod, by the time that you'll start unlocking them is by the time that you'll start needing them. This is when Cafe starts bringing in the Terracotta Sentinel, or you start dealing with the other Chaos factions getting their big boys. So yeah, it comes at the perfect time. As a mount option, you can only get it with the Herald, and that will be at rank 18, so a little bit further down the line, but it is a very strong mount option, so yeah, it does make a lot of sense to push it a bit back. It will take a while, and obviously this will be after you can turn them into Exalted, so you might want to wait if you want the mount. Obviously keep in mind that there's a unit option too, so it's completely up to you. I kind of like it with the mount option too, mainly because there's a lot of damage output, and I don't know. It's a very strange thing. I kind of like it just because it's pretty. It's purely a rule of cool type of thing, but both of them work. So yeah, you can pretty much have this if you want to keep them with the Herald option rather than going Exalted. Right, let's talk about how it works in the battlefield. So this is a rather strong, can I call it a highly mobile magical bolt thrower? I think that's probably the best thing to do. Magical Sniper? Yeah, anyways, so this is going to be 4 units of Plague Bearers and 1 Herald of Nurgle, and yeah, instantly you can see that the damage output, it's very good for single targets. It just basically almost deletes that poor guy. As it goes, like, this is a great sniper for single entities. I don't think it's great against, say, for example, big units, because it won't do that much damage as far as I've seen. Like, it still does a decent amount of damage, but this is great to just take out a single entity, and it's just pretty damn good. It's just very good at what it does. You will notice that it does kind of struggle if the target's moving around, and it does fire on the move, but it's probably better in a stationary form than anything else, especially once, you know, you can see the enemies going into the trees. Obviously, the trees will provide a lot of cover fire, and yeah, you won't be able to hit them as much, so yeah, this is good for possibly a lot of maps where you know you're going to be firing into big single entities and there's not going to be a lot of cover. Could be a little strong, I'm not too sure, because, well, Nurgle kind of does need a bit of artillery, and this does help, it definitely does. This next clip is against a Exalted Great Unclean One and 2 other Great Unclean Ones, and you can see the sniping capabilities are just wonderful. You can see that they will struggle later on when they start trying to fire into the other ones, because it'll take a while for them to move. I will also mention that the Blue Horrors on the little ship will also start attacking once you get to the typical Blue Horror range, which is quite good, because you get a bit of extra damage there. And yeah, the damage output is incredible. Now, it might seem a bit overpowered, and I understand that, but keep in mind that it's only pretty much good at single entities. Anything else, so if you're dealing with loads of hordes of bloodletters and so on, I haven't noticed it being too great, and it does become a lot weaker, especially, well, after a certain point, it just can't really do damage, can it? So I do see it as a very strong artillery piece for the beginning of a battle, and if you can get a good few shots with that, like, you have to plan out more than anything. So it's not really overpowered, because eventually it's going to run out of ammo. I see it as a really interesting thing, to be honest. The main thing is, like, the model itself is just gorgeous, and that's the main thing. But I'm taking this as we finally have a ship in Warhammer 3, so technically we have naval battles, and yeah, I know a lot of people will argue against it, but hey, that's the naval units. That's the main thing. But anyways, with all that being said, the mod can be found in the description below. I'd suggest checking it out, especially if you're a fan of Tzeentch, or if you're a big fan of SLAANESH like I am. It's going to make the SLAANESH campaign a little bit more bearable, I'd say. Once we're still waiting for, like, armor or something, this is technically an armor piece, and hey, it does a really good job. So yeah, have a great day, guys, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.